Patrick from Walpole Media, are we ready to go?
You're on, Jim, whenever you're ready.
Terrific. Okay. Welcome, everybody. And we're here for the Select Board meeting of April 14th, 2020. And as we always do, stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic,
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
So we're still in remote mode, as you can see, and we'll conduct the meeting as we have for the last couple of meetings, where we will, with everyone participating remotely, we will follow a round-robin approach to questions and commentary, and then every vote that we take will be done by a roll call vote. So we have several items under new business for this evening. I think the first one that we've got is the renewal of the lease agreement with Walpole Youth Soccer. So Jim, if I could ask you to just briefly touch on this.
Sure. This is the lease agreement that's set to come up this summer. I went back and looked. Last year we did it around May, beginning of May or so, and I thought it would be, Walpole Youth Soccer had reached out and asked us to add it on there. So that's where we're at. So last time we did it was in 2015.
Great, thanks, Jim. So this is a 5-year extension or renewal of the lease. The lease amount is $1 a year. The tenant, which is Walpole Youth Soccer, has the accountability for all upkeep, maintenance, and so forth of the fields. And there's a bunch of standard, boilerplate language in the rest of the lease agreement. So before we vote, let me just round robin it here and see if anybody has any questions for Jim or any comments. So David, I'll start with you.
I have a couple of questions. So what is the value of the rental that we're giving up? What is the value of the lease that we're giving up by just charging them $1?
What specifically do you mean? Like how much is it worth, or what? Did you hear that, David?
Yeah, well, yeah. Exactly. You know what the value is of the rental?
No, I just asked you, what do you mean? I'm sorry. What do you mean by that? Right now, the value is $1. If you're wondering what's the value if we were to bid this out, I don't know.
So this lease started in 1994.
Yes, it did.
An expenditure that they made to make the fields better.
There were no fields there to begin with. They actually went through the planning board process. I believe Nancy might have been on the planning board back then. And they created the fields there, filled it in, and worked with the town to have that agreement.
How much did they spend to move the fields?
Again, I don't know.
And how much are they spending on maintenance on an annual basis?
I
I could jump in on that. David, they spent $200,000 to build the fields way back when. It was just a dirt and gravel lot with a lot of ledge. Walpole Youth Soccer spends about $30,000 a year to maintain my lot field.
Okay, so that $200,000 spent in 1994 was certainly an improvement, and certainly an improvement that we could forego charging rent based on the fact that they were making those improvements. but it's now 2020. Those improvements have certainly been paid off by the rents that we haven't been charging. So I'd like to see some more information about what the current value is, deducting perhaps the maintenance of the facilities and charging them an appropriate amount of money, given that this is town land that has been given up to the exclusive use of one organization. Building new fields on 1A, and certainly we're charging all of those entities fees for the limited rental of the facilities. Why should this at this point be any different, unless you can show me that, you know, the value of the lease since 1994 is such that we still have to pay off, we're still paying off the improvements that they made to the property. And Mr. Galvin, are you still on the board?
Yeah, David, I'm going to abstain on this vote. I abstained 5 years ago, and this agreement was put in place before I was a selectman, so I've never actively voted on this lease.
And
I thought
David,
it was okay to chime in on the argument, though.
Well, you asked a question. I was trying to just provide the answer, so.
and David, on top of the 200,000 that they spent initially, they actually did a site plan update when they expanded fields and parking and had a drainage issue. So I want to say that I want to say they put in another 200 on top of that when they went through the second time.
Yeah, I'd like to see it all laid out.
So
What
David,
the value of the rental is
specifically,
at this point.
David, what specifically would you like to see?
See the current value of the lease, exactly what the town taxpayers are giving up for this group. I'd like to see the improvements that they've made over the years and the value of those improvements. I'd like to see the maintenance budget and what's being maintained. I'd also be interested to see what money they have on hand if they're not, in fact, have, advantage. I understand this organization also has exclusive access to fields that belong to the trustees of the reservation. So they definitely are not strapped in their rentals of properties. They are making use of this property exclusive of other taxpayers, and I think the taxpayers have a right to know exactly what they're giving up if they were to give this organization since 1994
Okay.
these improvements.
Jim, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Nancy.
And Mark, maybe you know the answer to this. They're paying for upkeep of that field, which is to me a savings to the town because we're not having to do any of that maintenance. And they're still, youth soccer, I believe, is still paying the same user fees that every other group is too.
Yes, they are.
So if they're all paying the same user groups, but yet they've done an exclusive negotiation, and if I don't know if you remember years ago when we redid the field at Stone, it was also Walpole Youth Football that actually put in the initial cost, and they redid the entire field, and then they maintained it, and then had basically the same kind of agreement for a few years. They've since moved on a little bit, but I think the benefit to the town when we kind of were encouraging these sorts of things is that it was taking away, not only are they paying for the maintenance, but they're also paying people that aren't town employees, that we are then not paying them salaries and we are not paying into their retirements and their benefits and things like that. So I think the savings to the town is even bigger than just what youth soccer is paying for it.
So let me just jump in there. The youth soccer pays all of the maintenance costs and all the upgrades for the Mylod field. So youth soccer has about 1,000 players. So some of them play at Mylod, some of them play at Ellis, and some of them play on town field. So those that play on town fields, youth soccer does pay the rec department, whatever the fee is. It's $25 to $30 a year, I don't remember. But for those kids that only play on Mylod or Ellis, youth soccer doesn't pay that fee because the equivalent of that fee is what goes into the maintenance.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. David's got some questions for us, and I think we should go and get the answers to those questions, and then sort of bring back, a view of this for our next meeting, which would be in a couple of weeks. And that still gives us lots of time. This lease doesn't run out until August, so we've got plenty of time to deal with it. So why don't we just defer this conversation till our next meeting? Let's get the answers to questions David has requested, and we'll deal with it at the next meeting. Reasonable?
Can I ask a question, Jim?
Sure, Jim. Yeah.
So David, specifically, the questions I have written down here is current value of the lease, improvements made over the years, the maintenance budget, and the money on hand. Am I missing anything?
That's what I said. I'll send you an email in the meantime to clarify.
Question for the board. How do you want me to go about getting the value of the lease?
I think the only way we could do that is if we were to go and bid it, right?
That's what I think.
I don't know if there's any other way to do that. Now, is there, I don't know if there are any other towns around that have a similar agreement that we could look at. I don't know, but short of bidding it, and I'm not sure who we'd be bidding it to, but short of bidding it, I don't know how else we would come up with an answer to that question, Jim.
Okay.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So my thought is that if we're going to be bidding it, then we're bidding it, and then we could actually be getting ourselves into a little bit of trouble. That in a way, if nobody bids against Walpole Youth Soccer, and then nobody actually wants it, and then Walpole Youth Soccer decides not to pay the maintenance fees, I think we could get ourselves in a little bit of trouble. And in a town budget that we're kind of worried about, I would prefer that we maybe just look around and see what some other towns are doing and use it as a comparison.
I think that's reasonable. And by the way, I was not suggesting that we bid it. I was simply answering the question. I don't know of any other way that you would get the answer to the question without actually going out to bid. I'm not a proponent of that, but that would be the way we would do that. So perhaps, Jim, we could see if there are other arrangements similar to this in other towns. We could see what those arrangements look like. At a minimum, we can go back with the other questions answered, and then have a deeper discussion in our next meeting. Okay.
Fine with me.
All right. Everybody good with that?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So let's move on to our next topic of discussion, which is, I got to go back to my agenda here. Hang on. So we have a DPW paving contract that we need to vote to award. So Jim, could you just step us through this one?
Sure. This is actually, Ben reached out to me late last week, so I'll kind of start with that. The question that came up was, why are we awarding a almost $1.5 million contract when times are tough? That's because this money is awarded through Chapter 90, which is a state road improvement program. So this money can only be used for road improvements. This was our money that was appropriated at the fall town meeting. So we're not taking money that could have been free cash or some other funding source. So we sent this out to bid. We received multiple bidders on this one, with the low bidder being Pawtucket Hot Mix Asphalt initially at $1.3 million. However, the problem was they were not a pre-qualified bidder. We had to disqualify them. The next qualified bidder was Walsh, based in Attleboro. they're at 1,479,000. Then aggregate was third at 1.518. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have. And we're trying to get this out and awarded for the paving season this summer and into the fall.
Great, thanks, Jim. So, Mark, any questions for Jim?
Yeah, Jim, you know, with the lack of people driving around right now, is it possible to get them going almost right away once it's awarded? Assuming that, you know, traffic's gonna increase later on at some point as the COVID-19 thing sort of winds down.
I could certainly. I haven't even asked that question. I'll ask Rick to ask that question and see if they can get started a little early.
Great, thanks.
Nancy?
None. I'm ready to make a motion when everyone's all set.
Okay, Ben?
I'm all set.
And David?
I'm all set, but just a corollary to what Mr. Gallivan indicated. While I think of it, does Public Works or Sewer and Water have any projects on main roads that they ought to be doing now while there's very little traffic?
Actually, your next item on the agenda is the sewer system improvements for inland water. So I think Rick's going to try to get a start on that one too.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to award bid contract 2020-20 DPW paving contract to Walsh Contracting Corp.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So, David, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 5-0-0. The motion carries.
And can I just make the next motion and we can do the discussion? Since we already talked about it, I'll make a motion to award bid contract 2020-18 sewer system improvements to inland waters for a total bid of $517,290.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for discussion. So, Jim, anything you'd want to add to
Sure.
this part of the discussion?
Again, something similar to the last vote. This is the phase 10 and 11 of the MWRA loan grant allocation program. So it's not being funded through free cash or anything like that. It's just through the MWRA town meeting authorized both of these phases here to go forward with it. And we can improve the sewer system around town. And once again, I'll ask Rick and Bernie if we can get started on some of these projects.
Okay, great. Let's have discussion. David, I'll start with you.
I'm all set with this.
Ben?
Set.
Nancy?
All set.
And Mark?
Yes, I agree with David. Assuming they can do it in a safe way, I think it'd be great to get all these projects kicked off and going while things are slow. Aye.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Jim, aye. 5-0-0. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a reserve fund transfer request from the veterans agent for $11,000. Jim, you want to step us through this?
Sure. This is something I was actually hoping we could take up at town meeting and fund the May and June payments for the veterans benefits. We knew we were fast approaching kind of our dollar limit on that. But with some of the recent developments, some more veterans have come on. So we projected about $8,000 to get us through May. The account currently has about $869 in it. And we're going to need this additional $11,000 to cover the veterans who've come on for April, the remaining part of April, and all of May we're projecting at this time. So we'll be planning on coming back for a June request, but I didn't want to do June at the same time because I think the numbers will be different.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you've got this in front of the FinCom on Thursday night, I believe?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Terrific. Okay.
I'll make a
Go ahead, Nancy.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the veterans agent, a reserve fund transfer of $11,000 to cover the remaining month of April and May for veterans benefits account.
I'll second that.
Okay, for discussion, Mark,
No discussion.
No discussion.
Ben,
All set.
All set.
Nancy, I think you said no discussion. David, you're all set. Okay, and I'm all set. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
And Jim, aye, 500.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is to vote and discuss a number of town meeting articles for the spring town meeting. It's Articles 10, 11, 12, 20, 21, and 22. So, Jim, would you talk us through this one, please?
Of course. Dan, Bruce, and I spoke last week at length, and he's hoping to really get away, just only do the necessary articles at the spring town meeting, whatever that is. I'm expecting, we delayed it until June 3rd. I'm going to be asking Dan to push it again until June 22nd as that date approaches, and we'll notify everybody ahead of time. So he's looking to do only the necessary articles that are required to keep the town operating and running. So what the articles you're being asked to act upon tonight is to agree to allow them to be on the consent agenda for no action. Those articles include Article 10, which is the snow and ice budget. Right now, we have about 400 or so thousand left in that budget. Prior year bills, I'm not aware of any prior year bills, and neither is the town accountant. Article 12 is a police department contract. We don't have an agreement with the police department at this time. We were almost close, but nothing was signed. So I request that the board take no action on that one at this time. Article 20 was a stretch code that your board was sponsoring. 21 was the the inclusionary zoning bylaw, and 22 was the affordable housing trust requirement there. So right now, I'd ask your board to agree to be placed on the consent agenda.
So I will make a motion to place Articles 10, 11, 12, 20, 21, and 22 on the new consent agenda for this 2020 Springtown meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second for discussion. Mark, any discussion?
No, not at this time.
Ben?
Yeah, I had one quick question, Jim. Was there other language or any other legalese that town council felt we should put in there for these articles, or it was ultimately discussed and agreed that this was the proper and legal way to do it, particularly with the zoning items?
So Article 21 and 23 are zoning related articles, and I raised the question to her whether or not it would be whether or no action on this would be a sum to no action for 2 years. She provided an opinion that she didn't think it was. She believed it could come back on in the was it the fall town meeting. So she was comfortable with these items being placed on the consent agenda.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, I'm okay with that determination. However, might it be cleaner if we reopen the warrant, remove these items from the warrant, and then close the warrant? That's something we could discuss for a future meeting. Secondly, I just want to be clear that this is the motion also that it's for no action. And I would like to just comment on the consent agenda in general at town meeting, which I think is a good idea. However, I think there was some confusion at the last town meeting as to exactly what was happening. And I think it ought to be made clear that the consent, every item on the consent agenda was going to be voted as no action. I think it was a little unclear at the last meeting, and then there were several RTMs that came to me that were somewhat confused and thought that somehow something had been passed without a full discussion. But it should be, you know, just to make it clear, and hopefully at town meeting will be made clear that these items on this consent agenda are all for no action. But other than that, I think it's a good idea at this point.
David. Nancy,
No comment.
did I hit everybody?
Just to follow up on David's idea to reopen the warrant, actually, that's my preferred option, but because your board has already signed and sealed and we've posted it everywhere, we got an opinion early on. Basically, the warrant is now in the moderator's hands, so it would be a lot easier if the board could have taken a bunch of these items off and just not even had them considered, but that's not an option at this point.
Thank you.
I guess that's what we get for being too efficient.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 500. Okay, our final item under new business is to vote to renew the junk dealer junk collector licenses for Allied Recycling Center, 1901 Main Street, the Vintage Peacock, 1415 Main Street. And then under the junk dealer is GameStop 6463 at 103 Providence Highway, Heifetz and Sons Inc., 996 Main Street, and Second Glance at 961-E Main Street.
I'll make a motion
Okay, go ahead,
to
Nancy.
renew the junk dealers junk collector license for this year.
I'll second that.
And for discussion, Nancy,
None.
Ben? Ben, any discussion?
No.
David?
All set, thank you.
Mark?
All set.
And none from me either. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 500. The motion carries. So we're on to gift acceptances. David, do you want to take us through that?
Sure, these, an anonymous gift to the Council on Aging in the amount of $5,000. A gift from Cliff Snuffer to the Council on Aging in the amount of $500. And a gift from William McAdams to the Council on Aging in the amount of $500. Accept these gifts with gratitude from the town.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Actually, David,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
and Jim, yes. So 500. We have a couple of sets of minutes to approve, the minutes of March 24th and the minutes of April 7th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 24th.
I'll second that.
So any discussion? Nancy,
None.
Mark,
Nope.
Ben,
No discussion.
and David,
No discussion.
and Jim, no discussion. All in favor, please say aye. David,
Aye.
Ben,
Yes.
Nancy,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jim, aye, 500.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from April 7th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second for discussion. Any discussion? Mark,
No.
Ben,
No.
David,
No discussion.
Nancy,
No.
and Jim, no discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Nancy,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Jim, aye, 500. So we're now on to the town administrator's update. So I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Sure, just two items here. For Corona, just we're currently at 91 confirmed positive cases. Of those 91, 35 have completed monitoring. and are in recovery. That leaves 56 current cases undergoing monitoring. And just to give you some perspective, last week we only had 61 total confirmed positive cases. So we've jumped big time over the last week. So I don't know if the board has anything to add. I know that the Board of Health continues to meet each week on Tuesday nights at 7:30. Patrick's filling in for me. I've been trying to make a point to join their meetings just to touch base with the chairman and the entire board to make sure they're comfortable, see if they need anything. And they're doing a great job. Melissa continues to do a great job. Rika, Trish Fisher, they're all helping out. So are the school nurses. As this caseload has kind of grown, the school nurses have stepped in, and it's really helped out big time. So it's really where we're at.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Let me just pause on that to give the board an opportunity to comment. Nancy, I'll start with you.
No, I think the Board of Health is doing a fabulous job. 91 means that that's people that have symptoms enough that go to the hospital and get tested. 40% of the people never have any symptoms. 40% of the people, continue acting day to day, but yet they are infectious. I think that everybody should stay home, stay with their families, and realize that you should assume that people have it as opposed to not having it at this point. That's it.
Thanks, Nancy. David, I'll go to you next. David? We'll come back to David. Ben?
No, I don't have any other comment on that. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, Mark?
I agree with everything Nancy said. People should try to stay safe, stay isolated, stay with their families. I did also want to mention that I also think the Board of Health and the school nurses and everybody's doing a great job. I'm also very impressed with the work being done in terms of food delivery. It's being operated out of the Council on Aging building as well as the high school. And it's amazing how many people they're feeding each week. And just want to say that if anybody finds himself in a situation where they don't have enough food or food for their kids, please reach out to the Council on Aging, call the number, and they'll set you up with food. It's important that everybody get through this crazy period. And it's important that people have good food so they can stay healthy and fight off this disease.
Thanks, Mark. Great suggestion. David, I'll go back to you.
Sorry, my window got buried. I was looking at something. Again, everybody's doing a great job. Another shout out to just frontline police and fire. The Boston police had a death in their ranks, and just it's a tough place to be, to have to be out there in the public, and especially the fire and police walking into these situations where we know the virus is spreading, and just thoughts and prayers to those, especially on the front lines, and the nurses there, and Nancy as well. Thank you all.
Thanks, David. Well said. I'll just ditto it. Thanks for everything that everyone's doing. Everyone's doing a great job as they have been, and we just have to continue to work our way through this. And at some point we'll get through it. But it's a difficult time, and just kudos to everybody who's working so hard to help us get through this. Jim, I'll go back to you now to conclude your administration update.
The next one is the storm update. I've never had to deal with an emergency within an emergency, but that's kind of the situation we were in yesterday with the windstorm and the rainstorm that came in. Currently, there are 321 residents in Walpole still without power. That is down from about 2 hours ago. My number here written down was 596. When I checked in this morning, it was 780. So they are making progress. Slowly, but they are making progress. They had crews in here last night, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with that. They had tree crews, they had Eversource crews, so they were around town. it was just a tough storm. It seemed like trees were coming down in places that they don't normally come down. We saw things along East Walpole, some in South, all up and down Washington Street. But like North Walpole or up off of Lincoln Road, up that area was pretty quiet, which I was surprised. It's usually the areas we get hit the hardest. So we're working with them to get the 321 people back up and on. They've been in contact over text and phone calls with me. We keep a checklist with the dispatchers going, so that's going down. And I would say the public safety people, the fire and police and the DPW guys were great yesterday. Everyone was in. Crews came in. Obviously we're on a skeleton crew, but everybody understands that they're to be on standby, and everybody really pitched in. Water department, highway department, cemeteries I saw down there. Myself and Patrick were out there. Rick and Bernie Marshall, Donnie Anderson. Everybody kind of just figured let's just go get this picked up and help out however we can and block off roads. So it was a tough storm, but we got through it, and thank God it's out. So that's the two updates.
Yeah, it was a tough storm. Did I see in I think it was Chief Carmichael's note, there were 51 trees that came down that we had to deal with?
51 incidences, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It really is.
And on Elm Street, there was a tree right across 27 earlier in the day, right near the school. They got that cleaned up, the Parks Department. And then about an hour later, another tree came down right near Turner's Pond, and that was down for a good 6 hours because it was in the wires. So it was a challenging storm, but fast moving.
It really was. Again, kudos to everybody, and the way you described it, Jim. Everyone did pitch in, and you also called it emergency within an emergency, which it is. And it's just remarkable how the people who provide the services of town, all the employees just jumped in, and it's just been unbelievable given, everything that's going on here. And so just great thanks to everybody for everything that they're doing and have done.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So that concludes our agenda for tonight. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Ben?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. So we're now adjourned. Patrick?
Jim,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. One reminder to everyone and everyone watching, the Board of Selectmen were not scheduled to meet on the 28th. We had scheduled some time off because of the April vacation, but we've juggled the schedule around, so now we've added the 28th on. You're comfortable with that? Board members, you're comfortable with that?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, it seemed to me that was the right thing to do, because otherwise it would have been 4 weeks between meetings, and it just seemed like an awfully long time to me. So I think this will work out well to have the meeting on the 28th. So that's what we'll do.
Okay, thank you.